Welcome to This Human Life. I am your host, Sam Cookithus. This Human Life explores what it is to be human, identity, language, and the plasticity of ideas. It embraces making the unfamiliar familiar. The episodes move between the somber and the playful because life is filled with moments of both. It embraces uncertainty because the ideas are inspired by 10 years researching and living in the head of the Scottish philosopher David Hume. In the 18th century, Hume did something more successful in Western philosophy than even the Cartesian, who doubted everything but the I. Hume questioned the certainty of the I. In this podcast, the I is always in question, always in a state of flux, because it gives up the presumption of knowing with certainty who we truly are. At its core, embracing the uncertainty of knowing even the I, or the you, is what creates the opportunity to bring discovery and wonder, not just to an uncertain world, but to what we most take for granted. Hi guys, welcome back to This Human Life. Today, it's my pleasure to be in conversation with my close friend, Viraj Oza. Viraj is a performance and mindset coach, and he's been working in this space for 2 years. Now, what we're going to be looking at together is something that's really close to both our hearts, and that's looking at masculinity. But we're looking at masculinity from the perspective of how we can live an unconstrained life. So, Viraj, first of all, welcome and thank you for accepting my invitation. What I would love is for you to tell our audience a little bit about yourself and your journey and why masculinity is an important topic to you.
Thanks, Sam. It's always a pleasure to connect with you and have this conversation with you. So yeah, I suppose a little bit about myself. Firstly, as you said, I'm a mindset and performance coach. I've now been practicing for the last nearly 2.5 years, and how it all began was I just reached a point in my life 3 years ago where I thought I was experiencing burnout. I took some time off work and realized that I needed to look at a few other things that weren't just affecting my physical health, but then also my mindset and sort of how I felt about myself. And I took that on and got into some personal development, got a coach myself, and just really started unpeeling layers of an onion that I didn't know were there. And when I got to the course, I really saw what was important to me, and then began to transform my life from working nearly 50-hour weeks, on top of that 3-4 hour commute every day, and having done that for nearly 10-11 years, and transform the life where I actually get to work and choose and be on my clock. I get to be dad at home with the kids as well as work, and as you mentioned earlier, I'm a coach, so I get to share and pass on and pay forward everything that I've learned from my various different coaches and mentors, and help people with mindset and performance that want to go out there and change the world and create an impact and ripple. And that's something that that lights me up on a daily basis. And I really feel now, looking back at how things were 3 years ago, that we have this need to want to be in control, but I actually feel like I have a far more greater control of the trajectory of my life, my mindset, my skill set and purpose than I was even ever aware of. And I feel that that's something that we should all have an access to, and then be able to choose the path that we want to go down.
Amazing, man. Amazing. And what I remember, like, one of the things that we both share is that you co-founded recently an organization which is called the Mindful Men's Group. And that's something that I've been joining every fortnight, and the sessions have been incredible because we've really seen how valuable and how much these kind of conversations are wanted by men when you create that space for them to have these. So could you tell me a little bit about that group?
Yeah. I mean, and you've probably noticed this as well, Sam, when you're in the personal development space, from my observation, I would say the ratio is say 70-30 in favor of females that are in that space and exploration. And not that that's a bad thing at all. The Mindful Men's Club idea was actually something that was brought to us by a friend of ours who was running a female group based out of Northwest London. And she came to us and suggested that, you know, there isn't really anything like this. And, you know, and a few of us who were friends at the time got involved and said, you know what, let's just see where this goes, because we've all been on a journey ourselves, and we connected, and it's a very sort of authentic sort of connection and friendship. And you know, we just thought, let's get the ball rolling. And you know, now we've had, you know, what initially started off as an idea and an in-person meetup has now turned into a fortnightly Zoom meetup where, you know, men from all parts of the world, from the Far East through to you know, to Europe and beyond, are now regularly coming in just to have a conversation about what's really important to them. You know, whether that's money mindset, or whether that's spirituality or parenting or energy management. You know, and we're just a bunch of regular guys that have just gone through a journey, and we're just now on a mission to really serve a global community by creating a time as a conscious community of men that connect, grow, and inspire one another without any strings attached.
I love that because it really is that. Like there are no strings attached. It is just a space for men to really to feel gotten. I think it's one of the things that I see a lot.
Yeah.
And especially with some of the guys who are probably not as not been on their journey for as long, maybe the right way to say. When they open up, you see the transformation.
Yeah.
Because they take it on to share the things which they've been holding back. And, you know, week after week, it's like, oh, this is amazing. Like it's such a beautiful thing to see when a man gets to let go of what he's been holding on to, because
and I think that's the thing, you know, and what we mean by open up, it isn't kind of what you see in the movies where someone breaks down into tears and all that kind of stuff, but actually people just say what's been on their mind for a while. You know, like when 100%. You know, when you kind of have that niggle and doubt, it's like, is it right if I even say this kind of thing? People, you know, are just in that space where there's just no judgment, and they can just say what it is and actually get to look at it now in a way that they never got to even look at it from another perspective, or you know, or offer different perspectives. And it's kind of one of those things that when it's in your mind, it looks a certain way, but it's not until you say it, you're like, yeah, what was I thinking? You know?
Totally.
You know, part of that space is just for that, really. It's just for people to kind of just say things as it is for them without any kind of judgment.
Yeah, I love that. And it, as you were speaking there, the word which came to mind was permission. It's almost like if you create the space, you create the feeling of having permission to open up about the things which are really going on for you. Right?
Yeah, and yeah, no, I just wanted to pick up on what you said. The reason why it's a mission is it's going to evolve. It's going to be fluid. It isn't. This is it now. We've kind of defined it in a perfect way. Like there was you know, there was this really good quote that actually I think we shared on the most recent meeting about, you know, you've got to keep evolving. You just, you know, good is the enemy of great. If you've got something good, you kind of need to. It's not to say reinvent the wheel, but you've got to look at it in the sense of that evolution. I think it was quite by Vishen Lakiani. Sometimes
I think it would have been,
yeah. I'm just trying to recall it now. That's it. It's sometimes you have to destroy a part of your life to let the next big thing enter. And that's really been our mindset, is to not rest on our laurels, is to take on the feedback and really taking the input of everyone that's participating, because it's really for them, right? You know, the 4 or 5 of us that are running this thing. It's in service of the people that attend and participate. So it's really kind of their baby, and we just kind of, you know, we do whatever we need to do in the background just to facilitate or create the setup.
Yeah, and you know, as a coach, it's been really great for me to be able to see like what kinds of conversations you know really do make that kind of difference and really do create that shift. Because I end up working with women, it seems, a lot more than I do with men, because women are the ones who kind of naturally gravitate towards coaching.
Yeah, and obviously not that there's anything wrong with that, but as you and I have both seen that there is that ratio, and it's my mindset is, okay, what can I do to kind of normalize this conversation of growth, transformation, and not have it occur as like woo woo.
Exactly.
This is people.
Exactly.
People have lives to live and responsibilities and passion and purpose and whatever missions they have, or even what legacies they want to leave. So, the way I see it for myself is, what can I do to just normalize the conversation about growth without it meaning that there's something to fix.
100%. Like I think that's such an important point, because it's really easy to feel like there's something wrong, and if you've got all this internal frustration or anger, then to not be able to figure out why feels like there's something wrong, or there's something to fix, as you said.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that nicely takes us on to something which I wanted us to look at, which was what lies behind some of this internal microaggression and frustration, and maybe connecting it with the kind of validating culture that we have.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, no. I for me, I think the first standout big thing is just the way life occurs for so many people is such a fast-paced life. It's like it's almost like the Amazon Prime way of living. Like you expect results straight away, right? You click
exactly,
and it usually arrives on the day or maybe tomorrow, and you kind of got the thing that you want. Like it feels like there's just been this acceleration of expectation, and when those expectations aren't met, we internalize that. It's like people, like relationships aren't lasting as long as they used to. People are, I even when I was, working full time in my previous organization, like you were kind of in it for the long haul. Whereas now it's like, get your 2 years and then move on to the next place. Get your 2 years. So there's a lot of frequent changes, and maybe that's causing a lot of people to be unsettled or not wanting to make commitments or play the longer game. But it almost feels like there's a lot of quick fix scenarios right now, and when they're not working out, people just use, okay, I just need to change it, rather than just looking at it and seeing, okay, what is it that I can be responsible for? What can I take on? What can I transform inside and outside that's going to yield a much more sustainable, empowering result? Because otherwise we'll just look for the next relationship or change job or change our friends or cancel culture, all that kind of stuff. Is like, as soon as something doesn't fit, we discard it, rather than looking
100%.
at how can I make the most of what I have right now, and then once it's run its course, to then identify, okay, what's the next thing that I need to build this on top of.
Yeah, I think what I want to pick up on there, which I think was really important, was that it's the internal aspect of it, where like when you're just moving from job to job, relationship to relationship, you're constantly in the space of waiting to, like, you're looking for the fix to the problem, rather than seeing two things which you mentioned. One is like, how can you actually create personal responsibility about the situation, so that you're unconstrained, right? At its core, like, so you are in a feeling where you have power over whatever is going on in your life, and that's going to require looking at what's going on internally. Because if you're not looking at what's going on internally, then everything else is going to be window dressing on, in the realm of fixing something.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. It's like we're always pointing the finger outward rather than pointing the finger inward. And when
I love that.
start from inside, the results will just magnify outside.
Yeah. So here's a question,
Yeah.
because I think some people, and you're obviously as a mindset coach, a lot of people might be like, oh, I don't know, I don't know how to work on my mindset, or it's like, I don't want to work on my mindset. Like, isn't there another
Mhm.
way? Like,
Mhm.
what would you say to either of those kinds of people, or both?
Well, I suppose there's got to be a willingness to take a look at it first.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, to a certain extent, I feel, we can be in denial about it because there's almost the admittance of there's something wrong. Where if we just take out the terminology of there and being anything that's right or wrong for that matter, is okay, look, how are things working out? Are things the way you would like them to be? And if they are, great. And if they're not, it's like, well, let's take a look and see where it is, because actions don't happen spontaneously. There's the thought is created first. The thought becomes a
Yeah.
belief. The belief becomes a mindset, and the mindset influences your actions. So it's about
Totally.
finding, where is it? Like, is there something circumstantially, environmentally that you need to work on in your physical space? Or is there a block or a belief, or is there a mindset that needs to transform?
Yeah. It just, for me, it reminds me of what I do a lot of work with, which is really looking at, like, what is the presenting problem, and then what's actually behind it, and like, where did it first surface? Because so often what I see is that it's something which happened at a very, very young age, right?
Mm.
3 or 4 or 5. And, like, I remember having a conversation, actually with a guy, in a coaching conversation recently. And I could, just by listening to the language he was using
Yeah.
around the idea of something being wrong and making a lot of mistakes,
Mm.
we were able to quickly see that that was something he had felt since he was 5 years old.
Yeah.
And, and when I made that connection and I asked him whether this resonated, he was visibly shaken.
Yeah.
I think the word he used was, "I'm shook," because he never would have guessed or even imagined that there could be a connection between
Yeah.
something which was so 25 years down the track,
Yeah.
right?
But
When
that's
we
the thing,
open
is
up,
that's
sorry,
when
go for it, man.
seeds. Yeah. No, I was going to say that analogy is perfect, because that's when seeds are planted, right? And it either turns into a flower or a weed.
Yeah,
And it
absolutely.
depends on what you water. And when you're that age, you learn to just survive the situation rather than actually, because you just don't have the emotional intelligence or the vocabulary to look at it in that way. Which is why when we look back, it's called reflection. In hindsight, you just take a pause, look back, connect the dots, and move forward. And that's kind of the essence of what we do in our coaching, is that we just take someone on the journey of, okay, how have you got to this point, rather than you want to get to the source rather than dealing with the symptoms,
Yeah,
because that's the weed
totally.
you want to pull out, and that's now new ground to plant something new of that person's choosing. And when we look at a lot of our beliefs, conditioning, I mean, it's influenced by the past, right? What else is it? It's our
Yeah,
education, it's our family, it's our friends, it's our culture, it's our faith. Like, all of these things play into it. And when you're that young, your mind is almost like a blank canvas, right? You come into this world with nothing, and you're imprinted onto without you even realizing it, until your self-awareness starts to increase. By that time, you've already formed habits. Your beliefs have already begun to formulate, and now you're just acting from a particular space or context, or the way you've learned to see things. And not that there's
and
anything wrong with that. It's just when you get to a certain point in life and certain things are at play and you can't connect the dots, you just power through the best way you can. And and again, not even to say that there's anything wrong with that. Like, people will still live a pretty decent life. It's just not one that's more consciously of their choosing. And And I think that's the cool thing that we get to do, is that we just get to go on that journey and say, look, here's your challenge. How does this match up to anything that you've seen previously? Connect the dots, uncover a blind spot. And then once you know, you can't not forget it at that point, right? It's it's like no one ever forgot how to ride a bike.
Yeah.
Once you found balance, you've got balance. It's something that stays with you. And similarly, when you achieve these moments of clarity and aha or epiphany, you're like, okay, now that I know this, the next time you're in a similar situation where you're about to make another choice, you now can make a more informed choice of, do I go down this road again, or do I just take one small action, one small atomic step to change that trajectory? And when you just keep reinforcing that, you achieve the results that you want rather than the ones you think you wanted.
Yeah, no, I totally. And one of the things which, while you're speaking, I was reminded of was how this relates to the challenges around masculinity, right? Because if we think about like it's almost like, do you ever remember the 7-Up series? The idea of like, show me the child of 7 and I'll show you the man.
No.
So there was a very famous series, and it was done over, I think, almost like 40, 50 years in the end, because it was so successful.
Oh, wow.
But basically, I think it started in maybe 1950s or 60s. And what it was a group of 7-year-old boys and a few girls as well. And as a social experiment, they would interview them at that age. And then I think 7 years later, they would look to see how they progressed. And then every 7 years, they would look to see how they progressed. And what was stunning was the way in which these beliefs, which you saw in the child at 7, and these habits and behaviors were still present when you got to see these, now adults all these years later. And it was just a really, and it was not something I clocked onto as a kind of early adult watching this, but as now with the background in coaching and personal development, it's like, that makes so much sense, right? That's how it looks. We are
totally.
So
you can only see. I was gonna say you can only see out of your own eyes, and therein lie your blind spots. Your range of view is limited. Whereas when you kind of get that other perspective, it helps you complete the picture.
Yeah, and I think the beautiful thing about this is, right, it's like it provides access to how we can deal with a lot of the problems which are going on in the world right now, where men are, at the core of escalating these situations, whether it's around violence or it's around the anger, because what there is obviously something which has happened at a very young age, which has created a belief that this is the way things are. And sometimes what that looks like is something happens and then you don't want to ever feel that way again. So then you create a shield so that you never have that experience again. Right? And if imagine you're a kid who is, quite open and unconstrained, and yet at some point that doesn't feel accepted. So what does that kid like to do? Well, if they were like me, what they do is they go into their shell and they suppress what's natural. They suppress the natural self-expression which children have to fit into a culture which they see about what it looks like they should be doing, right? And then the more you're living from that place and you don't have an outlet to actually, to express what you really wanted to do, you see kids and men particularly turning to violence
Yeah,
violent video games and all this sort of stuff for an
yeah,
outlet for that exact, those internal
exactly.
microaggressions and frustration.
Yeah, yeah, and I suppose with what's going on in the world right now, we're seeing that microaggression really vividly
Absolutely.
of years
Absolutely.
of things being built up, and at some point it reaches a tipping point. For some, it
Yeah.
shows up in their health. For others, there's actions that they take in society or against other people, and you can all trace it back to maybe a handful of incidents that were just kind of left unchecked or not visited at the
Yeah.
source, but you see the ripples that that can create. Now, similarly, you could take you could look back at that and now begin to create the next set of ripples that empower you from exactly where you are. So you don't even need to go back and change anything.
Yeah.
Because to change
Well, you
something
can't.
is to imply that there was something wrong with it, right? Or that it wasn't working,
Yeah.
or that there was something wrong. It was just what it was. It's now, okay, well, it's a choice at this point, right? It's like, what do you choose to do now? Do you choose to take ownership of the way things were and just how they went, and you know take new steps to give yourself new actions, or are you just going to keep repeating the same things and then not be surprised when the results don't change?
Totally. Right. Like, the thing is, you can't change what happened. So,
No.
like, if you're trying to, like, I just wish I could change things, it's like, well, stop focusing on that. Like, what's much more powerful, I find, and is about how can I reframe what I made that mean? Because it's the meaning that you attach to the thing which happened, which
Yeah,
is what keeps you trapped. It's what keeps you in a space where you feel resentment towards someone, you feel angry, and you then want to lash out because that builds and builds and builds, and eventually it builds in a way which can lead to the violence, which can lead to you doing something that you would afterwards regret.
mm, totally, totally, because there's just something there that just it's like a door that's been left open, right? And you see how shadows extend, right? If you at night when you think you've closed the door, but you see a little bit of light coming through. Now, the further out you go, the sort of broader the sphere of the light is. That's an incompletion or something that was just left unchecked. That the longer you leave it, it just expands.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what we talk about when we talk about coaches is sometimes we just look back and say, okay, what doors do we need to close? How do we close them? And what are the ones that we need to open?
Totally. Yeah.
And that's
I
the thing that I love about coaching and working with clients is that you get to go on that journey and just close a few doors, and now you're in a new room, and that room's full of possibilities and things that people never conceived were available to them that were always right there under their nose.
A beautiful way of looking at it. Yeah, I really resonate with that, and it really is like, it's such a privilege, right, to be able to work with people and to see them shift their understanding of who they are and who they get to be in life.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine doing something which makes me feel, more fulfilled.
Yeah. And when we were talking about masculinity and what it means to kind of be a man and stuff, it's like, whose definition is it? Is it your own, or is it the prescribed version that we see on social media, the news, or and just even in that conversation alone, it's like, well, what does it mean?
Yeah.
Because ultimately, it's energy, right? That
Yeah.
and we're all part of it. We generate a level of energy that can be labeled as masculine, can be labeled as feminine, can be labeled as toxic, can be labeled as empowering. But the one constant is the person. So it's all within us people of how we generate ourselves. And once we just can get to a place where we're willing to take a look and then become aware, why then do external labels really matter?
Mate, that is a brilliant question to lead this first part of the conversation. And if you are someone who's listening, I really invite you to ask yourself in this following week, why do external labels really matter? And if they didn't, what difference would that make in your experience? If you're anything like me, you listen to a podcast like this one, get tons of insights, and then have nowhere to go to really dive deeper and continue the discussion. If that sounds like you, you're going to love this. I have created a free Facebook group just for listeners of this podcast, so we can dive deep and have real conversations on how you can take whatever you love the most from this episode and apply it to your life, alongside me and a group of other seekers and philosophers who are looking for the same kind of dialogue and transformation that you are. To join us, just head over to divedeeperwithsam.com, and I can't wait to meet you there.